What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is the Kershaw Bareknuckle. I think a lot of people are really familiar with this model for sure. You can see there the model number, Kai USA. So this is a US Kershaw. A lot of you who are not familiar with this model might be thinking, that's familiar, where have I seen that before? You guys know that Kershaw and Zero Tolerance are both a part of KAI or Kai USA. The ZT variant of this knife, I believe, is the 0777. So those of you who own that knife or have seen it before and are trying to connect the dots, that's essentially what this is. This knife was provided or lent to me along with many other amazing budget knives by my good friends Jared and Kara Neves over at Neves Knives. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you guys are not subscribed to them, pause this video, head on over to their channel and give them a subscribe. They absolutely deserve it. You'll be able to find a link to their channel in the description of this video and in the comments section. I'll make sure and pin a comment about it. If you are new to my channel, I like to do knife reviews, knife overviews, unboxings, discussion topics. I've got Quest for the Perfect Budget Knife on Saturdays and the Knife Guy on Sundays. I also like to do a lot of giveaways, so if you like daily knife content and all that sounds good to you, go ahead and make sure to hit subscribe and set your notifications to all. Let's go ahead and move in here and get some measurements. The overall length of the Bareknuckle coming in at just a little bit over 8 inches, about 8.1, maybe 8.2 inches. From tip to scale, you're looking at about 3.5 inches of blade and about 3.5 inches of cutting edge. That is awesome. That is a sweet spot for me. It's a sweet spot for a lot of people, though I know, in some areas you are restricted to blade length, so that's not going to work for everybody. For me, it's pretty cool. How about some size comparisons? Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, you can see Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so a little bit longer there on the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 serving as an excellent size comparison. PM2 coming in a little bit longer at about 8.3 inches overall, though the angle, for whatever reason on camera, is making it look like the Bareknuckle is a little longer. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in a nearly identical length of 8 inches overall. Great size comparison. The Bareknuckle being a little bit more slender in profile. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall, so you can see they're a little bit longer. How's the action on the Bareknuckle? Well, a lot of people are aware of this by now, but I'll show you guys. The action is pretty sweet. Keep in mind, this is a US-made Kershaw. Those of you familiar with Kershaw know that their knives tend to be under $100. So we're looking at a US Kershaw that is not assisted. That's right, not assisted. We have a detent right here. Check this out. Click, nice clicky detent. Pow, nice rapid, snappy detent, you want to call that. Not quite fall shut, but I would imagine some people are going to experience perfect fall shut action. This one has been used. I know that Neves Knives, they like to really use their knives over on that channel. Even still, the action incredibly smooth. Very, very, very up to par with what we look for in the knife world in 2019. So very happy with that. How about weight? What are we working with materials on this guy? So what we have is a 6061 T6 aluminum frame that's been hard coat type 3 anodized, in this case gray. It does come in at least one other color configuration that I've seen, and that's OD green with a sort of black wash blade. And then right here, this piece right here is actually a steel sub frame lock, I guess, because it attaches to the aluminum. You can't use aluminum as a lock. I mean, like, it might work for a little bit, but it's just not soft enough on the surface to be able to wear properly or lock a blade in place. But as a frame material, 6061 is just fine. In fact, it's great, in my opinion, under $100. Really happy with that. So what's the weight on this guy? 3.53 ounces. That is awesome, considering you have about 3.5 inches of blade. So those of you who subscribe to the idea that the weight should correspond with the blade length, or an ounce an inch, or whatever, you're going to be really happy with that. I always say the same thing. More about carry profile than it is about that, but I mean, I have my limitations with weight, just like everybody else. This knife is great. it comes nowhere near those limitations for me. So, I mean, in terms of what I wouldn't want to carry. So, carry profile and weight and blade length, all that is great. So let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy of this knife. What we have here is kind of, I mean, it's like a really pointy sheep's foot. You know, some people are going to say that's drop point. Some people are going to say it's sheep's foot. It just looks like an elongated sheep's foot blade with a tip. It is an actual tip, one that you need to be cognizant of. It's not super duper pointy and thin like the PM2 here, but it definitely is a fairly thin tip, so you should be aware of that and not go digging around or trying to pry open any bomb shelter doors with that tip. We're looking at a blade stock thickness of, is it less than 120 thousandths? Let's try that again. Guys, we will be updating these calipers soon. 120 thousandths is what I'm getting there. So not super duper thick. You do have a flat that runs, as you can see there, about 60-65% the length of the blade. A nice swedge running down the nose of the blade. Some pretty decent durability as far as the thickness of the blade stock goes down to the tip. It's not a perfectly traditional drop point, meaning that gradual drop, you know, here mixed with the sudden drop at the end leaves you with a little bit more material behind the edge than would be if it were a drop point, but still something you should be aware of. This edge actually does have some belly and it does drop fairly high on the blade given the profile. So what you end up with is an edge that's pretty thin. It's not an absolute laser beam, but it's pretty thin. It's definitely going to be fantastic for your EDC style tasks. And honestly, this is the type of knife that I would carry just about anywhere. It doesn't scream any one particular area or theory of use. You know, to me, it's just, this is just a great EDC profile and blade shape. I really like Kershaw's tumbling. You can see there a few light usage marks from Neve's knives, and the tumbling doing a pretty good job of hiding a lot of those knives. Of course, you can see them a little bit, but not really that big of a deal. I'm happy with that. You do have a little bit of a sharpening choil there, and that flat is going to allow a clamp to hold on to it right about in the middle if you use a sharpening clamp. If you sharpen by freehand, you're not really going to care, but there's a sharpening choil there either way. You do have some meaningful jimping up top. It's not super aggressive, but it definitely will catch your finger. So that's pretty cool. Moving down to the scales here, actually, let me point this out. You do have the stop pin way up high, and this is one of those models that has the shouldering, but it's really deep inside the blade, making sure the blade wraps all the way around. There's lots of surface contact, which really helps out with both stability and wear on the lock bar over time. So that's great. I always prefer that. Beautiful chamfering all the way around. You can see there, you know, this is a hard coat type 3 anodized aluminum, how it looks when you actually carry it, and it wears down a little bit. A lot of people complain about aluminum. You know, they say, oh, it doesn't wear, you know. Well, it depends on how you feel about wear. You know, if you're one of those people who knows you're going to use your knives and you wear marks bother you, then yeah, okay, you know, but everything wears. G10 wears, micarta wears, titanium wears. Materials are more or less resilient in terms of what they'll show over time. I tend to, if I'm going to use a knife, I tend to enjoy the heavy marks that I see on Type 3 hard coat anodized aluminum or like bead blasted titanium. It makes like kind of snail trails and natural patterns that just occur with use, and I kind of like that. You know, it's kind of a battle scar. Now, obviously on a Safe Queen, I don't want those types of marks, but you can see here it's really just a lot of the corners and things. You know, it's stuff probably running into the knife in Jared or Kara's pocket, and that's just how it's going to wear. I don't think it's bad at all. I enjoy the color of this. This is the setup that I would go with, but like I said, there is at least one other color variation, the OD green setup. So, you know, kind of pick your preference there. I would enjoy, if there isn't a version, and maybe I'm wrong, I would enjoy just seeing a black version of this, but either way, you know, the gray setup is nice. You can see here we have a semi-decorative Torx head pivot there for the adjustment side, and it is captive, so no free spinning setup. What do you know? T6. Blah. You guys know my thoughts on that. I do not like T6. It's not a deal breaker. I hope that the knife world and makers, you know, decide to change that at some point. 3 body screws, no issue there. You do see there is a cutout there to accept the pocket clip on the other side. So this is right or left-handed. tip up carry, which is how flippers should be in my opinion, though it is a right-handed frame lock. There is no, or subframe lock, there is no left-handed variant of this knife available to my knowledge, so keep that in mind. A little bit of a floating backspacer here. It looks nice. You know, I'd give or take it. Backspacers are great. They serve as a great means of structural integrity, and I like how this one looks. I like the black in contrast with the gray. No issues there. No lanyard hole. There's just not a lanyard hole. I don't really care about that. People who like lanyards are going to be disappointed, but it's not really that big of a deal to me. We do have a nice deep carry pocket clip. This pocket clip works really well in and out of the pocket. Once again, demonstrating that off camera, so it serves no purpose. But in and out of the pocket, it's really easy. I'm not sure why there's a cutout here. I don't think it necessarily needs it, but it's not in the way or anything like that. Though the screws are not recessed, for whatever reason, I'm not having an issue getting it over those screws, so that's not a big deal. It reminds me a lot of the Benchmade Bug Out pocket clip, which is a great clip. The only problem is right down here, it's a little bit pointy. Not that big of a deal. If it bothers you, you can always knock it down with a ceramic rod or something like that, whatever you use to knock it down. But not that big of a deal. I want to stress that. I kind of like how this sub steel frame lock looks. Of course, it is steel on steel contact that's hardened at the surface, so you can see there we're locking up at a good 50%. And despite them using it, it's only slightly off center, but you know, don't judge the centering on this because we have a knife that's been used. My experience with USA Kershaws is that they generally come perfectly centered, so I don't have an issue with that. There's no blade play up, down, left, or right on this guy. It feels very solid. I'm happy with that. I really like the look of this all the way around. Ergonomically, it's great. I can definitely get my whole hand around it. There's definitely an area for my thumb to rest up here. Also feel comfortable on the spine of the blade. Just general manipulation of this knife, the feeling of it, you know, it's just good all the way around. And really, you know, we're only 12 minutes in, but I'll say this. We've got a USA-made knife that has a good blade shape with a good blade steel for the price range, 14C 28N. That is, I hope I'm not mistaken, Sandvik steel, stainless, pretty good edge retention, pretty good toughness, very well rounded for this price range. Kershaw loves to use it. You see it on a lot of stuff. Generally accepted by the knife community, anywhere from the $40 to $80 mark, I guess. You'll almost exclusively see it on Kershaw USA made knives. How can you tell that this is a US Kershaw? Well, you can see the American flag there. Generally, you'll also see it because a lot of the knives in this caliber from Kershaw are assisted, so you'll see SpeedSafe USA. If you don't see that on your Kershaw, for example, like this guy right here, this would be a Chinese Kershaw. It also says China right there. So the reason I'm saying this is because we have a US Kershaw with a good blade steel, good blade shape, good fit and finish, running on bearings with a detent, no assisted, right? Good flipping action, good ergonomics, great chamfering, great fit and finish, good materials on the handle, the aluminum, great pocket clip. You have a captive pivot. I mean, the list goes on. Guys, this is a great knife. It's a really good knife. I don't know that I can critique this a whole lot. All that I can say is, darn it, I wish it wasn't T6 screws, but I say that about like every other knife that I handle. It's like 70% of the knives on this channel have T6 handle screws. Pocket clip's a little bit pokey back here, and that's about it. That's really all the more I can say that I just genuinely am like, meh. But that's it. They're just little tiny nitpicks. The best thing about this knife is you can get it for $65-ish. Some places it's going to be a little more. Some places it's going to be a little less. Like I said, if you want to purchase this knife for yourself, I do have an Amazon affiliate link down in the description so you can get it and support this channel at the same time. If you don't want to, that's fine. But let me emphasize this. This is a great knife. So if you know, for people who are like, I'm getting into the knife world, I'm transitioning out of some of the tactical stuff, you know, like maybe you're used to buying like SOGs and you know, really tactical looking CRKTs from Walmart. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you're transitioning out of that and you want to get your hands on a good, high quality US folder that doesn't break the bank, and at the same time experience this, you know, combination bearings flipper setup that everybody talks about, the clicky detents and the good, you know, flipping action. You know, you're pulling away from the cheapy autos and the cheapy assisted knives, and you're just wanting that good feeling. Yeah, this is a freaking great one to start with. Absolutely, this is pride in your pocket. you're going to be happy carrying this thing around. I definitely, you know, 2 thumbs way up for this knife. I really, really like it. So for around $65, you can have this thing. Guys, that's pretty much all that I can say about this knife. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.